$100,000 Bitcoin. Are we so back? We've got Ethereum above $2,000 for the first time in a long time. We're going to talk about the crypto news, the macro news, and what it means for your bags. Why? Maybe it's actually not as bad as the mainstream media wants you to think. Okay, mainstream media, a lot of people leave it on Twitter, on X. You know, they make all their money from doom and gloom, creating division and telling you why the world is always going to end. But this is a glass half full spin on the news that you're probably not going to hear from everybody that says, you know, the world is ending because it gets the clicks and they get paid for it. So watch this video because we're going to talk about tariffs, inflation, Federal Reserve funds rates, potential bull market. And of course, at the end of the video, I'm going to mention my top picks for 2025 when it comes to my top crypto picks. Stick around till the end. Let's get right into it. All right, let's get right into it. Here is the Bitcoin chart. Chart of Bitcoin, nice green candle on the day. Finally back above $100,000. Feels good. 101.5. $101,500. Ethereum, $2,047. Finally, Ethereum is back. Feels pretty good. Almost a 10% move on Ethereum for the day. Now, why is all this happening? Well, could it be that perhaps the crypto markets react faster than boomer traditional finance stuff? Okay, they do, because we get the news as fast as it comes, right? On X, we get to see exactly what Trump is saying, the play-by-play highlight reel of everything happening in the world all the time. Here is the White House press secretary talking about tariffs. Let's first touch on tariffs, okay? Everybody's freaking out. Everybody's a macroeconomics expert all of a sudden on why it's so terrible. Look, India, UK, Canada, Mexico, all of these countries that have been tariffing the USA. So Trump raises the tariffs globally, and most countries come to the bargaining table pretty quickly because they realize that they have more to lose with these tariffs. They don't really have the upper hand here. Okay, so pretty quickly, a lot of these countries, 34 of them, have already come to the negotiating table, making trade deals. And the China one we're going to talk about, that's, you know, Trump maxed out the tariffs at 145%. But both of those countries want to act tough. They want to act powerful, you know, to their constituents. So they're going to make a deal eventually. But it's publicly going to seem like this big debacle. Because also when it comes to the mainstream media, you got to realize Trump was never part of the establishment. So everybody hates him and they're going to maximize. Like, he's not a perfect person. Nobody's perfect, okay? But you have to realize that everybody in the establishment media, the legacy media, they hate the guy. So no matter what he does, they're going to always pretend that it's the worst possible idea of all time. But look, here's the press secretary trying to explain what's going on. Let's take a listen.
Ambassador Greer, NEC Director Hassett, and Peter Navarro, the entire trade team, meeting with 34 countries this week alone. We are moving at Trump speed to ensure these deals are made on behalf of the American worker and the American people. And just yesterday, it seemed to get a little bit lost in the news, and I think it's a disservice to the American public that it did. The vice president announced terms of reference for a trade deal with India.
So there you have it. You know, even India, ready to make a deal. And like she mentioned, you know, you don't hear about this stuff. It doesn't get a lot of coverage, but there's progress being made. They're only going to point out the problems, not necessarily the solutions. And yes, this is just all short-term bearish pain for long-term setup, for a long-term bullish setup. Let's continue on, shall we? This is Mr. Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, talking about why he's still scared. We're still uncertain about inflation. You know, he's still trying to stroke the inflation fears, even though I want to show you this chart here, Trueflation Index. This index here, why do I use this index? Well, it tracks 80 plus data sources of 30 million items. It uses Chainlink as an oracle to reference all this stuff. It's probably the most accurate inflation readout, a statistic that we have, maybe more accurate than, you know, what they're reporting on mainstream media. 1.6%. And you remember Jerome Powell, the Federal Reserve, saying they want to get to that nice comfy 2% level. Well, look at this. We've been below 2% since March, beginning of March, okay? So things aren't that bad in the inflation category, 2 months of being below 2%, but Powell still wants to pretend like he's worried about inflation. That's like saying, yeah, things are fine now, but, you know, a volcano could erupt at any moment. Yeah, we could always be scared about things. I think this guy's probably using the dislike for Trump to just as an excuse to go slow and steady, because the market, just yesterday, you know, the Federal Reserve met and decided not to lower rates. This is what the market expected. 95% of people were betting that there'd be no rate cuts. But of course, to fill the void, you know, this guy's got to give a reason. And so his reason is, inflation's low now, but what if it comes back? What if the boogeyman comes back? Look, they're still on track to cut rates at least once before July. The CME FedWatch tool has this factored in. They're probably going to make one rate cut at least before the end of July. So really nothing has changed, still on target. Let's see what Jerome Powell has to say.
An increase in unemployment. The effects on inflation could be short-lived, reflecting a one-time shift in the price level. It is also possible that the inflationary effects could instead be more persistent. Avoiding that outcome will depend on the size of the tariff effects, on how long it takes for them to pass through fully into prices, and ultimately on keeping longer-term inflation expectations well anchored.
So what did we just hear? It's a lot of fluff. It's a lot of complex verbiage to basically say, well, it's all Trump's fault because of the tariffs. Trump better get those tariffs done with quickly, otherwise we could have higher inflation. But look, it's in progress, okay? It's all in progress. They're kind of going at each other a little bit. Trump likes to give Powell a hard time and say, oh yeah, he's weak, he's not going fast enough, he's a fool. And this is kind of Powell's professional way of saying, well, Trump better figure out this tariff thing, and he better hurry up, otherwise inflation could come back. It's like, yeah, they're both butting heads. Powell is kind of right here. Like, Trump's tariffs do need to come to negotiations, but it seems like they are, and I've got no reason to think that they're not. I mean, and this video here is about the China deal. China is one of our main trade partners in the USA. Everybody's scared about the China 145% tariffs. This is what Trump had to say about that. Let's take a listen.
Well, those tariffs are staying on.
Why would I do that?
Would you lower them?
At some point, I'm going to lower them because otherwise you could never do business with them.
Yeah.
And they want.
So there you have it. All right, Trump just said it right there. Of course he's going to lower the tariffs, he says. He almost kind of showed his hand. He kind of gave away the quiet part. He kind of said the quiet part out loud. He wants to lower the tariffs again. He just said, of course, eventually they're going to lower the tariffs. It's just that they need to come to some kind of trade negotiation deal. And this seems to be the top priority country because most other countries, 34 of them so far, have already come around and are already in talks. The UK, I can pull up an article here and show you the UK just today announced a trade deal. Wow. It's almost like nobody actually wants tariffs. They're all just flexing on each other and posturing, and Trump kind of giving everyone else a taste of their own medicine. I don't even know if Trump really wants tariffs. I think he just wants everybody to lower their tariffs. And his only hand, right, the lever that he has to pull here is, you tariff me, I tariff you. So like tit for tat. Let's pray for a deal soon. I agree. Ash Crypto, I agree. Powell says, we're waiting, we're not going to lower rates. It's all about the tariffs. The tariffs are happening, the negotiations are happening. The market is still predicting rate cuts by July. And obviously this is going to pump the markets. So that's my take. It looks like Fed Chair Powell is trying to pretend things aren't actually fine. Tariff negotiations are happening. That's going to lead to lower rates and bond buybacks. Let's talk about bond buybacks, shall we? This is bond buybacks. This is the U.S. Fed buying back $20 billion worth of Treasury notes. Kind of like bonds, not quite bonds, but they're shorter term Treasury notes. When they buy back their debt, they inject cash into the market. That's money. That's liquidity, right? Liquidity just means cash coming into the market, okay? Extra liquidity might trigger stock market pumps, crypto pumps, and hey, maybe Bitcoin and ETH today are already reacting to that news. We know crypto moves fast. Let's hope PulseChain reacts positively. Look, crypto is like leverage on the stock market. PulseChain is like leverage on Ethereum, okay? PulseChain is even lower liquidity than most of the popular cryptos out there, the big two, Bitcoin and ETH. PulseChain Hex, PulseX, lower liquidity, heavily tied to overall market sentiment. How do we know this? Richard Hart just beat the SEC, okay? And we didn't get a God candle overnight. Why? Because there's greater forces at play. I always talk about this. I always say that. But what are the greater forces? Tariffs, Fed rates, bond buybacks, liquidity, global liquidity cycle. It all is things generally outside of our control, but that seem to be trending in the right direction. Speaking of the right direction, here is Mr. Ran Noor. Shout out to KR the Ghost, covering the big crypto influencers that are starting to take notice of my favorite blockchain, the PulseChain. He actually mentioned PulseX and PulseX on his show. Now, this guy's got 1 million followers on YouTube, all right? 500,000 on Twitter, 1.1 million on YouTube. And these are the big influencers. Guys like Ran, guys like Ivan on Tech. They were always kind of friendly or just agnostic to Richard. They weren't haters, okay? But a lot of these influencers are waiting until the coast is clear because they don't want to take risks. And the risk here was backing something while there was an SEC lawsuit. Because nobody wants to look silly, okay? Everyone wants to play it safe, play conservative. Not my channel, of course. I'm a turbo bull on PulseChain. But Mr. Ran is finally talking about it again. Let's take a look, see what he has to say.
Pulse. Pulse and Hicks. I think I saw Richard Hart actually did a stream. I don't know if you guys saw this, but the reason why Pulse is probably going up is because it seems like Richard Hart is back. I think I actually listened to his stream this morning. I listened to everything.
Hey, Richard Hart here. Guess who just beat the SEC in court and did not settle and did not have their case dropped? This guy. Me. I did that. And you know why I did that? Well, 1, I'm innocent. 2, I've got great lawyers. 3, the government decided to bring a really stupid case against a really honest person. And guess what happened? The judge saw through it and dismissed the case in its entirety, something that almost no other cryptocurrency has ever achieved. And they didn't just charge me. They charged me, Hex, PulseChain, PulseX. They actually charged software as a defendant. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine math that you can run at home and execute on your own?
So Richard Hart is back, and that's why Pulse and Hex are actually moving.
Mr. Rand is correct here. That is why PulseChain is moving. Everybody's happy to see the founder back. The king is back in his throne, saying that everything's actually fine. All we need is marketing. So there's definitely a vibe shift when it comes to PulseChain specifically. Look, we've got all the builders built amazing stuff. And really, it just feels like now marketing is what everybody needs. Ethereum's not doing the best marketing. Luckily, PulseChain can basically we can carry Ethereum on our back, okay? I almost feel that the people that were marketing oriented all went to PulseChain. Like PulseChain took Ethereum's marketing team. It's sad there's not a whole lot of winning, protein, testosterone attitude over on the Ethereum Foundation. It's a lot of soy drinking, bug eating, World Economic Forum type of guys. But we still like Ethereum. We still want it to go up because it's heavily tied to PulseChain and basically all of crypto. It does feel like the Ethereum hate, the sentiment, the negativity on Ethereum. I don't know how much higher it can get. We'd have a reversal here. And we probably are going to be in a disbelief phase until ETH can get back above maybe the $3,000 mark. Then some people might start changing their minds. But you heard Rand. You heard Rand say to his 1 million subs, the final judgment is in. Richard Hart says he did it all with no help at all from the industry. A victory for PulseChain, Hex, PulseX. Some of the biggest news in crypto right now that not a lot of mainstream crypto guys are talking about because they were afraid the whole time because they ignored it because they didn't want to be wrong. But now it's okay, guys. Everybody can come out of the woodwork. And Mr. Richard Hart leaves us with a couple of words. It's time for us to take it to the next level. The coast is clear for greatness. New opportunities are now open. I agree with Mr. Hart. A lot of new marketing ideas, new marketing stunts are going to be tried. I would not be betting against the PulseChain community here at all. It just seems like the most thriving ecosystem in all of crypto. And for people that don't know, if you're new watching this, if you're new to crypto, if you're new to my channel, these are some of my top picks. Okay, let's cover some top picks. This is my watch list. I'm holding Ethereum, holding Pulse, holding INC token, PulseX, and Hex. These are the top 4. These 4 here are the Richard Hart core coins, the creations of his. I've got Gas Money token, Most Wanted, one of my top meme coins, and now Top Hat, another one of my favorite meme coins. Top Hat and Most are going to be my 2 meme coins going forward for the entirety of the cycle. I like Gas Money because it pays me out a slow, steady drip. A drip of PLS every single day. This coin happens to be on a nice little dip, but the core coins, the Pulse, Inc., PulseX, Hex, these are all up 8, 7, 5% on the day. And look at Ethereum, just having a 13% up day. That hasn't happened in a while. It's been, the last month of Ethereum has just been sideways. Maybe as a liquidity provider, you actually had a pretty good time this past month because of the stability. But finally, the numbers going up. We know what's more important than liquidity providing is just number going up. So there you have it. Tariffs, probably going to get negotiated. Federal Reserve rates, probably going to get lowered. Bonds are going to be bought back. That $20 billion worth here. The last couple of times the Fed did quantitative easing this way with bond buybacks, one was in 2012 to 2014. Another was during COVID. They both resulted in the Fed doing this multiple times over multiple months and basically injecting trillions of dollars, right? So over the next 5 or 6 months, if this keeps happening, we could see, maybe $500 billion net of money coming back into the ecosystem. Maybe $250 billion. We'll see. It's probably not going to be as big of a stimulus as the COVID bubble, I would hope, because then you have to pay for that later on down the line. But don't be afraid. There's light at the end of the tunnel. Nobody actually wants tariffs. That's my take on it. Nobody actually wants them. It's just playing your hand at the poker table with the cards that you're dealt. And USA, being the biggest economy, they know a lot of people need our stuff, but we don't need a lot of other people's stuff. People are going to come to an agreement. I'm feeling like May might be a good month. If not, maybe this summer. But you've even got crypto influencers like Mr. Arthur Hayes. Okay, Mr. Arthur Hayes is predicting bullishness even into 2026. So people are now even doubting the 4-year cycle You know, the 4-year cycle is only good until it's not. And this is the first cycle with institutional buying. Okay, Bitcoin made an all-time high before the halvening for the first time in forever. This time is different. We've never had BlackRock buying billions of dollars worth of Ethereum. Yes, they actually did that, and they still are buying. You're getting shaken out by institutions. You're selling your money back to institutions, and they are giving you the propaganda, the fear, trying to make you sell your back so that they can own it all and they can make trading fees off of you forever. And they can squeeze all the volatility out of it too, so the life-changing gains are going to be gone. But that's besides the point. Let's listen to what Mr. Arthur has to say about his predictions.
I think Bitcoin needs to go above 110,000, and on increasing volumes, maybe it, reaches 150, 200,000, whatever that level is. I'm not sure, but I think that happens sometime in the summer or early third quarter, and then the rotation starts into various altcoins. I think by the end of Trump's presidency, so end of 2028, Bitcoin will be around $1 million. We'll have caressed $1 million. It might be lower than that at that point, but I think we'll get to that nominal figure within the next 3 to 4 years.
Bold prediction there, $1 million by the next 3 to 4 years. And he does talk about Bitcoin maybe not running up to 200K until 2026. So basically he's saying we have more time than we think. The liquidity cycle is what really matters here. And not only Mr. Arthur Hayes, but Raoul Pal, for example, just gave a big presentation about the banana zone. His famous saying, his famous quote is the banana zone when things go parabolic. Basically, Raoul Pal just did a timing analysis of every single past cycle of Bitcoin, saying that right around now, historically speaking, is when things usually start pumping. So I hope your bags are packed. Hope your bags are packed, especially when it comes to PulseChain. Big influencers are bullish. Macroeconomic analysts are bullish. And Richard Hart beat the SEC in court. So Hex, PulseChain, PulseX are some of the only cryptos other than Bitcoin and Ethereum that specifically have regulatory clarity. They're actually the only 3 cryptos that have ever beat the SEC. Because technically they're the only cryptos that have ever gotten sued specifically as defendants. Doesn't make any sense. And the final judgment is in. So Richard Hart is back, the founder of PulseChain. You can feel it in the air. You can feel it in the air. And of course, go follow Mr. Hexologist. Mr. Hexologist, the meme lord. It seems like we've been reinvigorated. Okay? There's new hope, optimism. Now let's not get ahead of ourselves. Prices could still go sideways or down, whatever. But that's the bull case. That's the glass half full way to look at things. Again, Pulse Inc., PulseX, Hex, Most Token, Top Hat Token. Can't forget my favorite meme coin. A lot of these coins on PulseChain are going to outperform Ethereum. Like the founder even said, you could get a God candle at any moment. Right? These things are low liquidity by design. It's a feature, not a bug. And you never know when these things are going to pump. If you don't have your position by the time these things do their massive pumps, like if you miss out on a 40% up day, let's say, well, that's a huge percentage of the gains in the long run that you missed out on because you were trying to trade, swing trade or short-term trade the market when really it's just about positions, a long-term time horizon, and going against the current, being greedy when others are fearful. I know a lot of people watching are already in this position, but if you're new to crypto, if you're new to PulseChain, I would be obsessed with building my position if I was brand new to crypto. That would be the only thing I'd be thinking about, is getting enough of these asymmetric plays to outperform not only the stock market, but even Bitcoin and Ethereum as well. Like, subscribe, share the video, leave a comment. I'll see you on the next one.